Warning: the activities and subjects described in this video can be dangerous and should never be practiced without supervision. An adult should be present during every step of activity and construction, so don't do anything dumb, please. Medieval armor and combat can be dangerous, so be safe, train hard, and be knightly. Welcome to The Modern Medieval, the show that explores and explains medieval combat, arts and sciences, the concepts of chivalry, and how they apply to the modern day. I'm your host, Sir Gemini. Today we're going to talk about the medieval spear, its history on the warfield, its history on the dueling field, and we're going to show it a do-yourself build for under $20. Spear is a pole weapon with a long shaft usually made of wood and a pointed end usually made of metal. Archaeologists actually have evidence of spears being used up to 400,000 years ago, and it's considered one of the oldest weapons mankind has. Spears were one of the most common personal weapons used in the Stone Age, and they remained in use as important military and hunting weapons until the advent of firearms. They may even be the ancestors of the lance, the pilum, the halberd, the naginata, the glaive, the bill, and even the pike. Spears can be used as both ballistic and melee weapons. In other words, they can be thrown and they can be used for hand-to-hand combat. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the spear and the shield continued to be used by almost all Western countries. Since a medieval spear required only a small amount of steel along the sharpened edges, it was an economical weapon, quick to manufacture and needing less smithing skill than a sword. It remained the main weapon of the common soldier. The Vikings, for instance, although often portrayed with axe and sword in hand, were armed mostly with spears, as were their Anglo-Saxon or Irish counterparts. For a cavalry spear, that is, mounted on a horse, a mounted knight would secure the lance by holding it with one hand and tucking it under his armpit, in other words called the couching position. This allowed all the momentum of the horse and the knight to be focused in the weapon's tip, whilst remaining the accuracy and control. This use of the spear spurred the development of the lance as a distinct weapon that was perfect in the medieval sport of jousting. In the 14th century, tactical developments meant that the knights and men-at-arms often fought on foot, and with the advent of better armor, spears were shortened for more close and personal combat. Also, they were turned into hybrids, such as the pullux, where you had the thrusting implementation of a spear and the crushing or cutting power of an axe. Spears also developed another way. By the 16th century and beyond, they were used as pikes and up to 18 feet. They were done in huge phalanx or square block formations to ward off heavy cavalry. Okay, what we're going to need for our spear first is a piece of PVC pipe. You want to use the gray pipe that you get from the electrical section in Home Depot or Lowe's or any other type of store like that. Osh also works. What you want is schedule 40, and you're going to see rigid PVC S40, 3/4 inch, makes a good width. You can go a little thicker, but remember 3/4 inch is going to make about the same handle you would use on a shaft on a spear, so it works perfectly. What you want to do is you want to cut it to about 6 to 7 feet, no longer. I prefer 6 feet. And you want the bell end, the bigger end like this, as your tip. This is what we're going to make our tip out. Other items that you're going to need are a nickel, a piece of camp foam, a piece of closed cell foam. This is rubber closed cell foam. I tend to get this from Osh also. Some strapping tape and duct tape. Of course, a marking pen and scissors. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your nickel and you're going to place it on the camp pad foam, and you're going to draw out three or four circles like this. Then you're going to cut that out. You're going to end up with 4 or 5 of these. Then what you want to do is you want to take your closed cell foam and you're going to take your bell end, place it down on it, and then take your marker again and mark around it. You want to make 3 of these. Once you got them marked, cut them out too. Average spear weighs less than 2 pounds. That's not a lot of weight, not a lot of mass to it. So if you got delusions of hacking and slashing your way through hordes and hordes of orcs, you may want to think of another weapon. This weapon is used in its business end only. In other words, the thrusting point, the tip. Not anywhere else will do. You want to take your nickel here and you're going to put it inside. And what's going to happen is it's going to stop and wedge. I don't know if you can see that, but you can wedge the bottom. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent that foam from being pushed into the shaft of the spear itself. Then you're going to take your blue foam pieces and stick them inside and fill up the entirety. And you can go ahead, if it sticks out a little bit, just push it down when you push your other ones on. I always found the easiest way to do this is to take your strapping tape first, put it on the top one, you stack it on the table, place it on the spear itself, push down, and put it on. Now it doesn't have to be perfectly straight because you can adjust it as you go, just like that. Now, you're going to go ahead and strapping tape over the top of it a good 10 times. You don't want it to be too stiff, but you want to have enough cushion and play in it to where it's not going to tear off. Now that you've got your straight layers down the top of it, you're going to make one spiral layer to the end of your tape mark. Now to make it look good, we're going to take some red duct tape and put it over the top, and some black tape and put it over the sides. And there you have it, a nice, safe, very cushioned spear tip to practice at home with. And here it is, our practice spear. Now, I cut mine at 6 feet because I like to do my training and train my students at 6 feet. You can make it a little bit longer, but remember these are made of plastic and they're flexible, which makes them really safe, but they get a lot of tip wobble, so you have to be careful of that. Now, I actually prefer this, and the reason I do is because when you start practicing with heavier shafted spears and wooden shafted spears, you have a tendency to over-move and overreact when you're blocking. I find that using a training tool like this allows my students to learn the subtlety of the spear. Now we're going to go over some techniques in a little bit, or at least a couple of training things that you can do at home to practice with. But one of the things that you want to remember is the spear is actually a very intricate weapon, and it's a very subtle weapon. You want to use it with not too much overcorrection or flourish. So your movements need to be subtle and smooth. That means if you get a lot of wobble in the spear tip itself, you know that your hands are too active and that you're pulling and pushing the spear a little too much. So I actually like the flexibility of these training spears because it allows the students to understand how to use their body with the spear and not overuse it with their arms.